For being here early this morning, especially on the first day back this week. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Representative Blanton. Here. Representative Bowling. Here. Representative Bridges. Here. Representative Birch. Representative Cantrell. Representative Dossett.
Here.
Representative Dotson.
Here.
Representative Duplessis. Representative Flannery.
In my annexed office, present.
Thank you. Representative Fugate.
Here.
Representative Johnson.
Here.
Representative Kirk McCormick. Here. Representative Marzian. Here. Representative Miles.
Here.
Representative Gibbons Prunty.
Here.
Representative Scott.
Present in my annex office.
Thank you. Representative Stevenson.
Present in the room.
Representative Wesley. Here. Representative White. Chair Gooch.
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum. We're glad to see everyone this morning. Representative Marzian, I don't know if you're here at the last meeting, but you're kind of new back with the committee, and we welcome you, and I'm glad that you're here. So I think the first thing we're going to do is take up House Joint Resolution 11. Mr. Speaker and your guest, please introduce everyone. And glad to have you this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning with the Eisenhart family. The Eisenharts are constituents of mine, and they are the brainchildren behind HJR 11. And it's a relatively simple resolution, which I will let them explain, but it came to me at kind of an appropriate time, and it was when I was switching out a bunch of computers and printers in my office and realized that there was nothing to do with the old ones when I was switching them out. So they came with this idea, and I will let them present, and then we'll take any questions that you all might have.
Okay, please introduce yourself for the record, and we're welcome. It's always great to see young folks here, and thank you for your involvement in this issue. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Hello, my name is Lucia Eisenhart. First off, we wish to thank the sponsors of HJR 11, Representatives David Osborne, Representative Ed Massey, and Representative Philip Pratt. But we'd also like to thank Representative Marzian for meeting with us in the past and for connecting us with the right kind of people. In passing HJR 11, we would prove that not only the health of our fellow Kentuckians is important to us, but also prove that we seek to look out for the future of our planet while connecting three important matters: health and well-being, environmental protection, and the economic growth for our state. We believe that Kentucky can show the rest of the countries how e-scrap recycling can be done in successful and manageable ways. It is important to look ahead into the future and realize that with the ever-growing development of electronics, and problem with scrap disposal will have to be addressed. This is in our own hands now. Please consider the precious metals that can be harvested, and please read the facts that e-scrap accounts for 70% of heavy metals disposed into our landfills. These substances pollute our water, the air, and food supply chains, causing cancer, Alzheimer's, and other diseases. Due to the lack of appropriate infrastructure, 80% of our e-scrap ends up in our landfills. We believe that this is a problem that needs to be addressed, and we believe that the study described into HJR 11 will help us establish a program that would offer a recycling program to all citizens across all countries in Kentucky. Another important matter to address is that if we don't harvest the valuable metals in e-scrap, we actually contribute to climate change and other environmental problems such as habitat destruction. Since more raw materials will be required to be mined, processed and fabricated to make new electronic devices. Please vote for HJR 11, as this is the beginning and a start to a safer and healthier future for our amazing bluegrass state. Please check out KentuckyAirStarOceans.com or our Facebook page for further info, or to help us keep Kentucky a healthier place for all people and animals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you say you have a Facebook page?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Jens Eisenhart is here to field any questions that you may have on the issue, but I appreciate the committee's indulgence this morning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We thank you all for being here today. It's been, and you've done a good job. I think we have some questions. Representative Dossett has a question.
Just a comment. Lucilla, would you say your name again?
Lucia.
Lucia, how old are you?
I'm 12.
12. Well, I want you to know I am so impressed with what you've done. I have a little girl at my house, which, as much as I love being here, I wish I were home with her right now. She is 9 years old. And for you to come and speak here today, I am so impressed, and your family, I know, are proud of you. And I'm going to be honored to support this on your behalf.
Thank you.
It sounds like you were making a motion to motion in a second. Representative Miles, okay, has a question.
I've noticed, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've noticed the list of the items, including mercury on the list. What do we do with disposal of those items that are considered hazardous? How do we dispose of those and recycle those?
I believe you could probably take them to, I guess, other technology facilities, and you could also use them in new technology.
Okay. Thank you very
Sorry.
much.
I think one of the things that a lot of people from rural areas don't really know where to take items like this, and I think it probably would be better if we could encourage more outreach. Where I know some of our counties years ago would have a waste tire day where people could bring waste tires that day or something. It might be a good idea for us to really encourage collection times in our counties where, and they may have those already, but I don't see those as often as maybe we should. Representative Marsden, did you have anything to add?
Well, we have an e-waste recycling where our old solid waste used to be. So you can take TVs, computers, cell phones, and also at the zoo there's a container for old cell phones that they can repurpose and give to victims of domestic violence. And it only dials 911. So we've got it, but we only have one facility in all of Jefferson County. So, and if we can get precious metals out of them and reuse them, it's a win-win. So that's all.
I totally agree, because precious, the rare earth elements and those metals are something that we've talked about a long time, since we're buying most of those from China, and it's like a penny saved is a penny earned. So if we can save some of those, then as you said, we're not having to mine those, or maybe worse, buying them from China. So. Representative Dossett has
Yes,
another.
I'm sorry, I do want to add. I know in Tennessee there are several recycling locations where they actually salvage the valuable metals out of these, and it's one of the larger businesses. I know one that I was familiar with had several individuals hired on, so it is something that we could look to as an economic development tool.
Representative Boland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'd like to echo what Representative Dossett said. I'm so impressed by the presentation you gave today. I'm going to be glad to support this, but there's so many good parts about this. It keeps this stuff out of our landfills. A lot of it can be reused. But there's also national security implications on this, with China controlling 70-80% of the market on rare earth elements, as you all probably well know. And being able to get those back, reuse them, getting them in technology made here in the United States, it's a big thing. So thank you all for bringing this today.
Any further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the bill. I ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Representative Blanton,
Aye.
Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Bridges, Representative Birch, Representative Cantrell, Representative Dossett,
Yes.
Representative Dotson,
I was a yes when she took her mask off.
Representative Duplessis,
After hearing all the testimony, yes.
Representative Flannery,
Yes.
Representative Fugate,
Yes.
Representative Johnson,
Explain my yes vote.
Yes, go ahead.
I have 3 old printers and an ancient fax machine in a closet at home, and if we can find some place to put them, I'm all for it. So I'm a yes. Thank you very much for being here.
Representative Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Representative Marzian, Representative Miles,
May I explain my vote?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought it was really interesting whenever you said my yes vote's in favor of Representative Marzian connecting you with the right people of the Speaker of the House. So I have a yes vote for her connecting you with the right people. Thank you, Representative Marzian.
Representative Gibbons Prunty,
May I briefly explain my vote?
Yes.
I have 8 grandchildren, the oldest which is 12, so thank you for being here for them, and my resounding yes, thank you.
Representative Scott,
Yes.
Representative Stevenson, Representative Wesley,
Yes.
Representative White,
Yes.
Chair Gooch.
Let me explain my vote. Yes, I'm happy to do this. You did a great job explaining this. And also, on a lighter note, thank you to Representative Prunty for telling us a little bit closer to how old she is. So, with her 8 grandchildren. So, I vote yes. Okay, the bill does pass with favorable expression. That same should pass. So, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having y'all today, and hope that your trip to Frankfurt has been good. Is in this limited time where we're not able to. Wish we could have you on the House. Well, maybe the Speaker can do that. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Okay, next we're going to take up Senate Bill 257. Representative Mills.
Chairman Gooch and committee, thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'm Robbie Mills. I represent the 4th District in Western Kentucky, and that's coal country, and this is what our bill is about today. If it's okay to go ahead and proceed?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, very good. Senate Bill 257 deals with the Public Service Commission, and hopefully you've read it. It was a long bill, about 2 paragraphs, and but it is an important bill. If you're not aware, every so often the PSC periodically reviews purchase contracts to make sure that electric utilities' fuel buying decisions are reasonable. And when considering whether a fuel purchase is reasonable, the PSC should, and this is what this bill is about, consider more than just the cost of the fuel. They should look at factors like reliable fuel source. I know we've talked about this in this committee and in the Senate committee about coal is a reliable fuel source. It's sitting there in a pile. It's ready to go. All it has to do is be burned. And the other thing that they should consider is the economic benefits of the severance tax that's paid on that coal. And those economic benefits are spread out in 2 ways. They're spread out through the state budget, and they're also spread out individually in the communities that that fuel and that coal comes from throughout the state. So a low-cost coal contract doesn't always mean that it's the most reasonable contract. And so what this bill does is this bill asks the Public Service Commission to, in determining the reasonableness of the fuel cost in procurement of the contracts for the fuel, to evaluate the reasonableness of the fuel cost in contracts and competing bids based on the cost of the fuel less any coal severance tax imposed by any jurisdiction.
Have a motion and a second, and thank you, Senator, for bringing thank you, Senator, for bringing this. I know I was taking testimony one time in committee when I first got here, and I can remember, of course, the PSC at the time would make sure that you had the lowest cost or whatever, and there was one utility that testified that they were buying some compliant West Virginia coal that was 8 cents a ton cheaper than what the same compliant coal in Kentucky was. Now we're talking about 8 cents per ton, which wouldn't even been measured in cost. And when you looked at, the employment, the economic development, the way the dollar's turned over, the coal severance and all of that, that certainly was not something that really made any sense to this state. And it's one thing to allow someone to take the lowest bid or whatever, but for the state to actually promote something like that, certainly was not in our best interest. And so with that, are there any questions? Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Mills, for bringing this piece. I do support the legislation. Just a curious question. Is this similar language that PSC actually had in a reg a few years ago and they removed?
Yeah, it is. The House actually passed a resolution like 99-1 2 years ago. The PSC had this in a regulation, and they are asking us to put it in statute, and it gives them more firm ground to stand on in doing this.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good question.
Okay. Any other questions? Tom Fitzgerald, are you on the line? Did you want to make any comments?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I was just curious, and Senator Mills may or may not know this, but I like Representative Blanton. I support the bill. I was just curious. I know when the cabinet or when the PSC had this in their regulation, they were sued by an out-of-state coal company, and they settled the case by agreeing to remove the language. And I think that reg is actually was just heard by the Administrative Reg Committee. I'm just curious. I know the AG had looked at the language and had said there didn't seem to be a constitutional issue, but I didn't know whether Senator Mills, how confident we are that if this goes into the statute, we're not going to get another suit saying that we're violating interstate commerce.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the reason the PSC did away with the regulation they were operating under is really because of the cost of pursuing that, and I think it's kind of a backup situation. It's easier for them to come to the legislature and ask for a statute that gives them more solid ground. And from the folks that I've talked to, I believe the statute puts them on, like I said, much more solid ground if there are any legal challenges moving forward.
Okay, and I would hope that the AG's office will stand behind their opinion and will vigorously defend the statute if there is another challenge claiming that it was a civil rights violation. I think that was what, and I think the PSC acted prudently in settling that because of potential liability that they were facing.
It is.
Thank you, Senator.
I'll reach out to the Attorney General after this and touch base with him. Good question.
That'd be great. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Tom. And I think we often realize, and we've seen this a lot of times, where regulatory groups will be sued by a group out there, and they'll settle in court, and that settlement sometimes becomes kind of a consent decree that it's hard to overturn or do much with. But we're hopeful in this case, and we don't know until we try.
Right.
And certainly people can sue, and interstate being afoul of the Interstate Commerce Clause is something that I've been trying to kind of looking at in things that I've done here for 26 years, 7 years. So it is an issue. Any other questions or comments? We ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Representative Blanton?
Aye.
Representative Bowling? Yes. Representative Bridges? Yes. Representative Birch? Representative Cantrell?
This to the extent that entity here might pay the tax, which is pretty
Thank you.
Representative Dossett,
Yes.
Representative Dotson,
Yes.
Representative Duplessis,
Yes.
Representative Flannery,
Yes.
Representative Fugate,
Yes.
Representative Johnson,
Yes.
Representative Kirk McCormick.
Yes, may I explain my vote?
Yes.
I am from the Coalfields too, so anything that's going to support, I'm for it. Thank you.
Representative Marzian, Representative Miles,
Yes.
Representative Gibbons Prunty,
Yes.
Representative Scott,
Pass.
Representative Stevenson, Representative Wesley,
Yes.
Representative White,
Yes.
Chair Gooch.
Yes, and thank you. That I just want to point out that this is my senator bringing good bills before our committee, and okay, the bill does pass with favorable expression that things should pass. Thank you. Yes, great. We're moving right along. Next, we're going to have a discussion. House Bill 345. All right, Representative Bowling, go ahead. Introduce yourself and your guest, please. Or
Adam Bowling, State Representative, 87th District, and with me I have
Rusty Kress. Good to see everybody. I'm here on behalf of the American Chemistry Council, Kentucky.
Microphone.
yeah. Sorry.
Thanks. Rusty Kress here on behalf of the American Chemistry Council, the Kentucky Association of Manufacturers, and the Kentucky Chemical Industry Council.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present House Bill 345 today for informational purposes. This is a piece of legislation I'm very excited about because it will help spur economic investment while also helping reduce plastic waste. A win-win opportunity you don't often see. This bill simply provides for transparent rules for a new type of technology that actually breaks waste back into the molecules the plastic is composed of. Molecules the plastic is composed of in a process we're calling advanced recycling. As you will hear from my guest, this is more akin to a manufacturing process, so it defines these facilities as manufacturers rather than solid waste facilities and establishes definitions for the types of technologies that would be used in this process. We are already seeing big investments in other states that have passed this legislation. For example, Eastman Chemical, just across the border in Tennessee, announced that it was investing $250 million into one of these facilities last month. The other benefit of this technology is that it is actually able to recycle plastics that typically wouldn't be recycled, like styrofoams and plastic wrappings. So we are creating additional recycling markets with this technology as well. Mr. Chairman, I will wrap up by saying I think we have a really good opportunity here to help give these companies the clarity they need to operate in states like Kentucky and bring investment into the Commonwealth while at the same time reducing plastic waste. We look forward to working with this committee to pass this bill next session, and I will turn it over to Rusty Kress for some more comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Bowling. We're joined today via video by two representatives of the American Chemistry Council that have been championing these processes throughout the country. Prapti Mahuri and Wes Robinson, and we'll let Prapti here in a minute go through the process. It's really neat, and I forgot my prop this morning, but it was a plastic water bottle. Take it everywhere. There you go. And literally, they can take these plastic water bottles and turn them into a feedstock for other plastic products. Something that's really incredible, and it can also be turned into a fuel for that matter. So we're looking forward to working on this bill next session. You may wonder why we didn't run it this session. It's a complicated process. It's an easy bill. All we have in here is exclusions. we already believe that it's not considered a solid waste, but we want it belts and suspenders so that people want to make this investment. Some other states claim it's solid waste, but it's not. I practice environmental law and have for 30 years. I'm very confident that it's not solid waste. However, it works good to go ahead and make that clear in the language of the bill. We did have some feedback from the Energy and Environment Cabinet. They had 2 comments, both of them very reasonable, and when the bill is reintroduced for next session, those comments will be incorporated into the bill. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Propti to go ahead and explain the process.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Kratz. Good morning, Chairman Gooch and members of the committee. My name is Propti Mahuri, and I'm with the American Chemistry Council's Plastics Division. I'm also joined by my colleague, Wes Robinson. If it's okay to proceed, I'd like to start us off with a quick video to introduce today's topic on advanced recycling. So if it's okay, if someone could kindly cue the video, I'd really greatly appreciate it.
Okay, that'd be fine. Staffs. Okay, you need to stop sharing your screen for us to do the video.
Apologies.
Okay.
That should be good.
All right.
Plastics. Our society demands their benefits and an environment free of plastic waste. Recycling helps keep plastics out of our oceans and environment, but traditional recycling technologies have some limitations. While mechanical recycling can handle most bottles and containers, today's lightweight packaging designs are a bit trickier. Fortunately, emerging and innovative technologies can repurpose these plastics into new and useful products. Advanced recycling, sometimes called chemical recycling, breaks down used plastics into their chemical building blocks. Think of a child's toy house. Its building blocks can be assembled, disassembled, and reassembled again and again. Similarly, plastics can be converted into molecular building blocks and reused for a wide variety of products without combustion or burning. There are 3 primary types of advanced recycling technologies. Conversion breaks down the molecular bonds of plastics. Depolymerization breaks down plastics into specialty polymers or back to their building blocks. And purification dissolves plastics and removes additives. The results of these technologies? High-value products that can be used to make new plastics for food-grade packaging, specialty polymers for building and construction applications, cleaning fluids, transportation fuels that have a lower environmental footprint, waxes for candles and crayons, and much more. Advanced recycling complements traditional recycling by recovering used plastics that typically are not recycled today. Together, mechanical recycling and advanced recycling can help lead to a circular economy where plastics can be reused to benefit communities and the environment. For more information, visit advancedplasticsrecycling.com.
Thank you for sharing that video, and hopefully everyone on the floor can see my screen.
Yes.
Again, to quickly introduce myself, my name is Propti Mahuri with the American Chemistry Council. So just a quick background on who we are. The ACC represents the leading plastic resin and chemical manufacturers in the US. And in 2018, we announced a goal that by 2040, 100% of plastics packaging would be reused, recycled, or recovered. And so to kind of introduce today's topic for discussion, advanced recycling, that's going to definitely play a big role in meeting that really ambitious goal. And so to kind of level set quickly why we're here, let's think about why we use plastics in the first place. As we all know, we have a plastics challenge in Kentucky and more broadly in this country. We know plastics deliver a lot of great benefits to our modern society. So if we think about kind of the role plastics are playing right now during this pandemic, from our personal protective equipment, like face shields and gowns, and now in the distribution and actual delivery of life-saving vaccines. Here's just an example of kind of the sophistication and complexly engineered plastic, like this meat combo liner. And that really helps keep our food sanitary and fresh, while preventing waste and minimizing the use of resources. This is an example courtesy of Sealed Air Corporation, just to show kind of the various layers of a plastic packaging that's really critical to its performance. This does, however, make packaging like this meat combo liner challenging to recycle mechanically, and really does create the need for technologies like advanced recycling, as we just saw in this video a couple of minutes ago, that can more effectively recycle these sophisticated multi-layer types of packaging. And as we just heard in the introductory video, advanced recycling technologies are really a nuanced term that basically encompass a number of different types of processes that basically use chemistry to take post-use plastics and break them down into their original components, or kind of basic building blocks, as Representative Boyd mentioned. So picture kind of a bunch of Lego bricks that are being pulled apart and disassembled and turned into raw materials. And those can be used to create new plastics and chemicals, waxes and lubricants and other valuable products. This is kind of how we see the role of advanced recycling in what we call a circular economy. And to really set the stage just a bit further, all of us are very familiar with mechanical recycling. So you're, collect and sort plastics. These are, typically cleaned, heated, and formed into resin pellets. And then those are used to make new plastic products, parts, and packaging. But beyond these types of mechanical or traditional recycling processes, you're only able to recycle these types of plastics once. This is where kind of advanced recycling comes in to really address the typically harder plastic packaging formats that are hard to mechanically recycle. So really the beauty of these innovative technologies is that they really offer a complementary approach to mechanical recycling to really bypass kind of some of the technical the technical limitations that really will help us meet the future demand for recycled resin. So with advanced recycling, we're enabling to take a wider range of plastics, removing colorants and other contaminants. And with these technologies, we're really able to create kind of the same properties as virgin materials. And those can be used in direct food contact and healthcare applications. So here's kind of a little bit of a pictorial of one type of advanced recycling technology known as pyrolysis, which is kind of defined in the in HB 345. So kind of step one, take plastics that are go through a mechanical sorting process, and those are further sorted and prepped for a conversion stage. These plastics are typically heated and vaporized in an oxygen-deprived vessel. So there is no combustion or burning of the plastics happening during this process. It really happens just melting at high temperatures. And then as a result, basically condensable gases are kind of converted into hydrocarbon products. And then these are used in products like transportation fuels, liquid feedstocks for new plastics and chemicals, waxes, and other products. And this is actually a technology that's happening in Ashley, Indiana, with a company called Brightmark. And they have a facility in Ashley that will be taking about 100,000 tons of plastics annually when they go live this spring in 2021. And they already have a facility up and running. And to kind of, tie this all together of, how are we going to grow and scale these technologies? And what does a promise look like? We've seen that over 400 global brands are really trying to make good on their commitments to more sustainable packaging. And we really see advanced recycling technologies really poised to play kind of a key role in enabling that transition to utilizing more recycled content. So we're seeing these kind of important applications like food safety packaging, and brand owners are really committed to increasing not only plastics recyclability, but also the percentage of recycled content in their products. And that won't happen with just traditional recycling methods alone. And that's why we really need advanced recycling to make that happen. So let's talk a little bit about kind of playing off of the commitments that have been made, what has the investment been like around these technologies? So as folks know, beginning in January 2018, the new national SOAR policy came into effect, and virtually waste plastic imports were eliminated. So as a result, we've seen really a significant new plastics recycling capacity in the US and abroad, and a huge wave of new investments for these technologies. So at the American Chemistry Council, we've been kind of tracking the publicly announced investments to modernize both mechanical and advanced recycling. And we've seen about over 60 projects that have the potential to divert more than 4 million tons of plastics. That's about 9.1 billion pounds of plastics annually from landfills. And of these $5.5 billion in investments, about 83% of these investments are just for advanced recycling announcements alone. So there's a huge promise in the investment behind these technologies already. And I'm sure, folks want to know, where is this currently happening? Representative Bowling mentioned earlier that Eastman Chemical has announced recently a $250 million investment in their own commercial facility in Kingsport, Tennessee. These are some examples of other partnerships and investments, both in the US and Europe. Just to point out a couple of other ones, America's Styrenics launched a joint venture called Regenix, and they're taking post-use plastics and turning them back into styrene monomer. And they're doing that partnership with a company called Agilix, based in Tigard, Oregon. They'll be building a 100-ton per day plant, polystyrene advanced recycling facility in Shanahan, Illinois, kicking off this year, and will be going live on 2022. And additionally, we see some other announcements here. Shell has a partnership with Nexus Fuels based in Atlanta, Georgia. So Nexus Fuels is taking post-use plastics, turning them into a liquid feedstock, and then shipping that to Shell for use in the production of new chemicals and plastics. So a lot of great innovation happening here. And we're seeing a huge wave of investments and partnerships to increase and scale capacity in the US. So what does that mean for the passage of a bill like HB 345 for the economic development in this great state? If we just converted 20% of the recoverable plastics in Kentucky and turned them into plastic and chemical feedstocks, the state could actually support about 8 advanced recycling facilities in Kentucky, and that would generate around $78 million of economic output each year. And that was done based on an economic analysis by the American Chemistry Council. And if we looked at kind of the amount of plastics that are currently landfilled in Kentucky, there's potential, if advanced recycling is brought to the state, to displace about 358,000 tons of plastics from landfill and turn them into liquid commodities for use in plastics, chemicals, and other products. So there's a lot of promise for kind of diverting the amount of material that could potentially go to landfill and displacing the amount of plastics that are created from virgin natural resources. This is just a snapshot of kind of where are we seeing technologies that are already operating in the US. So this map shows about 40 facilities that are already in operation, about half of which are operating at commercial scale. I mentioned a few of them earlier, like Brightmark based in Ashley, Indiana, Agilix based in Tigard, Oregon, Nexus based in Atlanta, Georgia. And so the scale of the operations is definitely growing. They're still very small relative to the existing petrochemical infrastructure, but the potential to scale these technologies is very much there. So this is just a quick kind of background on the emissions profiles from these technologies. And this is an analysis done by an environmental sustainability firm called Good Company, based in Oregon. And they looked at kind of the average advanced recycling facility and looked at the emissions from these technologies and how they compare to other common manufacturing facilities. And so what we've seen is that the emissions from these technologies are very well regulated and controlled, especially through the kind of technological and operational practices. that must be kept. And so, and actually, new analysis is being done, and will be released in a couple of weeks, showing that when these technologies scale, so we're looking at a super plant averaging about 55,000 tons of plastics per year, the emissions scale linearly, are still well below the EPA threshold for emissions for CAPs and HAPs. And I think the most important takeaway here is that the advanced recycling facilities are so finely tuned that the materials which don't meet the very strict requirements are automatically rejected. So every category of air emissions from these technologies are well below the regulated EPA threshold levels, and are typically below well-known everyday industries. Like I have a few examples here, like a food processing facility, hospitals, universities, and an auto manufacturer.
Okay, can we pause? And I think Representative Dotson has a question for you.
Please.
First of all, I'd like to say I am in support of this bill, but I know that there's a fear among the general public, especially when it comes to plastic water bottles and certain things that hit the sunlight. And I don't know if it's an urban myth, but are there any studies on plastics that may have cancer-causing agents when it's used for, packaging food items or drink items?
So thanks for your question, Representative. Are you just saying in general about the kind of toxicity in plastics, or the result of processing them through these types of technologies?
Both, actually, if you could give me that.
Sure. So, I was just kind of touching on this earlier on kind of the emissions. When the plastics are processed through these types of technologies, they have to meet a very, very strict specification to be accepted for the production of new plastics. So if you look at any type of food contact packaging or healthcare medical devices that use plastics, when these plastics go through technologies like advanced recycling, if they don't meet those very strict specifications set by the EPA, then they get rejected. And so what we're seeing is that the companies that are doing this at commercial scale, they're well regulated under the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, et cetera, and do routine emissions testing, and they have to report that to their state DEQ or DEP. So I hope that answers your question, Representative.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just kind of at the end here, and happy to entertain more questions as needed, just to kind of bring us back to the focus of the bill for discussion today. We're really seeing kind of an interest from policymakers that are really eager for solutions, and they want answers with the right policy to attract businesses in their states. So what we've done here is seen over the past few years that laws defining advanced recycling as manufacturing facilities as opposed to solid waste management has really kind of eliminated that barrier of entry to welcome these technologies, bring investments to the state, secure offtake agreements, and permit their facilities in these states. So to date, this type of legislation has passed in 9 states, and we can see in the teal color right here. And there are several more states that have been introduced this year that are down the pipeline. And what this legislation really does is gives us the transparency for companies that want to do business in these states, make it very clear that they know what permits they have to get. It enables them to set up the agreements needed to secure their businesses and get them going, and helps them secure investments. And so kind of just some key takeaways to leave everyone with. This legislation, it really does help kind of protect public health. And it really ensures that these technologies are well regulated, that they have an air permit, a permit for water discharge, and that the waste is disposed of properly. And so it's been really good to see kind of the momentum domestically to support the growth and scale of these technologies via this type of legislation. And I hope it will warrant a fruitful discussion for HB 345. Thank you all for your time, and happy to answer any questions.
I think Representative Plessy has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. I do not quite fully understand some parts of it. I think this has promising technologies, and I think it'd be something we'd love to do, I'm sure. But I guess I don't understand why legislation is needed in order to bring facilities here. I think somehow that didn't stick. I understand what the technology is trying to do, but I don't understand why you need special legislation. So if you could answer that, I'd appreciate it.
Representative, I'll answer that in that in some states.
Could you use your mic?
In some states. All right. In some states, they actually those states do treat these as solid wastes, and to be a solid waste management facility really burdens the manufacturer in the requirements that it has to meet. So this is just to put.
I heard that in the presentation, but I guess I didn't understand why that would be the burden. So maybe we got time. Yeah. I'd like to understand more about why.
Absolutely, we'll sit down and chat about it. But it's just to there's a whole chapter in Kentucky Revised Statutes on solid waste management facilities, and those are really intended for landfills and transfer stations, things like that. And these facilities are pure manufacturers. They just happen to take a plastic material that's post-use and diverts it off.
Repurpose it, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And if I may just add a little bit more clarity, Representative, this type of legislation, it not only attracts the new businesses coming to the state, but it really classifies the facilities themselves as manufacturing. So therefore, they wouldn't be subject to kind of the same environmental oversight that applies to all manufacturing facilities, right? Such as food processing, auto manufacturing, et cetera. And so we really want to make sure that these are categorized as they are, which are manufacturing facilities, and as Mr. Kress said, not the solid waste disposal treatment facilities.
Representative Miles has a question, I think, or comment.
I guess I want to ask the question and kind of dovetail back on what Representative Dotson was. I think he was asking part of it, but I think we were thinking similar. As far as on the front end, I know one of your very first slides were the meat that's packaged in plastic, and then the possibility of that plastic, of how much plastic and things like that. Is there, and I'm assuming it is, because otherwise if it was not profitable, the companies would not be doing it, and environmental and things like that. But do we really know how much it cost and what the environmental impact? Because I'm assuming that those products, after you take that plastic off the meat, I'm assuming that's not clean plastic, and that would have to be cleaned in some capacity to be able to recycle it and things like that. So do we know the actual, not only the environmental costs that we have to clean those products, to recycle them, but also, the financial investment to recycle those, to get them to be able to use? So I guess at the very beginning of the process of where you all are talking about. So can you all kind of shed some light on that?
Absolutely, Representative. Thanks for the question. So in terms of the environmental kind of cost, there has been some life cycle assessment, technological assessments done in the US and Europe, just showing the environmental benefit of converting plastics to a feedstock for new polymers. And a recent study that was done actually in Europe by BASF showed that it was a 50% reduction in carbon dioxide GHG emissions. In terms of the question you had about, can these technologies really handle kind of the contaminated plastics like that meat combo liner I showed, and kind of what's the cost related? The cost is something that I think that it's really kind of company specific, and we're happy to kind of set up those discussions. But what we're seeing is that these technologies can handle a great amount of contamination that mechanical recycling is just not suited for, because you're melting these plastics at high temperatures and kind of condensing them, turning them into a liquid. These technologies can handle a good amount of contamination from post-use plastics.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, this has been a very interesting discussion. Representative Boland, do you have anything else, or?
No, just I appreciate you indulging us and being able to talk about this bill today. I think it's a good bill. I think it's a good technology that can bring about a lot of good things, not only economically but environmentally for our state. So I look forward to the discussion moving forward and moving into the 2022 session. Thank you all.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for
Mr.
bringing this.
Chairman,
And
I think Fitz was
Rusty.
going to
Oh,
say something.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, Rusty, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Rusty and I have talked about this, and we understand the cabinet had some concerns regarding some specific language. Also wanted to get a notice provision in, because while there is some exciting potential in recovering these materials that otherwise would be landfilled or otherwise may end up, as part of the ocean plastic problem, recovering it, creating jobs, displacing the need for raw feedstock, which is it's a finite resource. And there are also concerns on the flip side that you don't want someone to be in the business of sham recycling rather than proper management of the waste. And so we look forward to working with Rusty and his clients and with the cabinet during the interim, and appreciate Representative Bolin carrying the bill. Appreciate also, Mr. Chairman, you taking the time to present it and to allow the committee to hear it. In response to Representative Duplessis' concern, it's likely, as Rusty alluded to, that this bill is not needed because there's already processes for determining when somebody is recycling as opposed to engaging in waste treatment or disposal. But it does create a little bit more regulatory certainty for folks that are looking at making a pretty significant capital investment. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I appreciate the time and appreciate you all taking the time to look over the technology. Look forward to the conversation during the interim.
Thank you, Tom. And there's no question that, I've always talked about recycling. And, when you look at the cost of developing a landfill and the use of that land that we really don't have available in many places to do that. That's a bill that we had in East Kentucky for a different type of landfill, but we just had that bill this year. So it's something we definitely want to continue to discuss, and it's been a very interesting discussion. I think Representative Kurt McCormick has a question.
This is kind of exciting for me because I come from Eastern Kentucky, and we have a county that has major water problems. And I absolutely hate seeing plastic bottles everywhere. I literally purchased several years ago a water purification system because I got tired of seeing all these plastic bottles and having to dispose of them. And, I had contacted our county judge, and I was like, let's get a recycling program going here for plastic. It's going to save, our environment. It's going to save our landfills. So I'm pretty excited about it. And the question I have from an economic development standpoint, would it be worthwhile for local communities or counties to be in the business of gathering and recycling these plastic containers, milk jugs? Everything comes in plastic anymore. So I know it's a major concern as far as health risk, or it has been. I know you're better off to drink from glass, but we don't have that choice unless, the water that comes in glass is very expensive. And, I'm watching right now. We've had the flooding in Eastern Kentucky, and we've got truckloads of water being shipped in because they had no water. So all this plastic is a real concern for me as a representative of our region.
So, Representative, back in 1991, as Fitz is well aware, and a lot of folks here, the legislation, our entire solid waste regulatory and statutory scheme was created, and part and parcel of that was a recycling aspect of it, and it is within, it clearly states that reduce, reuse, recycle are the cornerstones of waste management in Kentucky, and counties were put in charge for the most part of managing solid waste throughout the state. So yeah, I would expect that they would already. I realize some counties are more strapped than others in terms of their recycling ability, but to create a recycling program would be well worth it.
If I could just add to that, Representative, you raised a very, very good, very difficult question. The market for recovered plastics is one where you have a robust demand for large companies that are making investments in recycling plastic. But the cost of collection and shipment of the plastics is very difficult for a lot of local governments. It's a volatile market because China made some changes in its policy regarding accepting plastic recyclables. Hopefully, manufacturing like this would create a new market to recover those materials by providing a fixed cost that would make it worthwhile to recover them, because there's a lot of social benefit at the end of the process in terms of recovering the plastics, but the cost of managing them for some local governments is beyond their ability. And so I think that this could be potentially a very positive thing. Regarding water bottles, you and Representative Dodson are correct. There are concerns regarding BPA, regarding phthalates that raise health concerns about certain uses of plastic. But recovery of what has been used and repurposing it could end up being very positive in terms of helping to stabilize the market for recovering plastics.
What about individuals that would be interested in recycling?
Well, there are opportunities. Particularly in the urban areas, there are some opportunities. Louisville decided to go all in, and rather than requiring people to separate out plastics, they take all of them. Some of them that are more lucrative than others, but they found that more people will contribute if they have to do less on the front end in terms of sorting things. One thing that Central Kentucky did for some time was the counties got together into a consortium that made it easy to do regional collection. That may be something that either the ads could look at for Eastern Kentucky or maybe through the SOAR initiative, because it's, there is one of my former board chair actually went off and worked on a project with Walmart that was trying to encourage local governments by providing zero and low interest loans so they could purchase the equipment, because Walmart and some of these other large companies were having a hard time getting enough recovered plastics. So there's a real disconnect between the end market where they're making sweaters or making carpet or whatever, and the difficulty for local governments in trying to get everything collected and shipped.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Thank you, committee. We've kind of gone to our hour. I think we got a lot covered in an hour, and so I think it's been a very good committee member. Representative Boland, thank you, and Rusty for bringing this bill. We look forward to working on it during the interim and seeing it again next year. And committee, oh yes, Representative Stevenson. Yes, the one is Senate bill, the only one we voted. Oh no, we voted on two. Yes, you want a resolution? Both. Okay, thank you. That has been recorded. Anyone else? This probably will be our last committee of this session, and but if something changes, we'll let you know. But thanks to the committee, and this meeting is adjourned.